I'm Stacy, 35. I thought I'd seen it all when it came to my family's favoritism, until one night changed everything. At my parents' 36th anniversary dinner in a busy Chicago restaurant, the clinking glasses and conversation fell away when my dad stood and spoke. His words sharp. "We wish your sister was our only child," he said, looking straight at me. The room went quiet. My sister smiled that smug smile, and it cut deeper than the sentence. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone stared. I felt heat rise in my chest. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I only felt something inside break. For years I'd poured money and effort into their failing business, and been treated like their punching bag. That night I decided I wouldn't keep taking it. I left in my heels, the click on the hardwood already sounding like the start of a plan. A week later, their wish came true in a way they never expected, and their tidy little world started to unravel. Imagine it were you. How would you react? Tell me your country so I can see how far this story reaches. Growing up, I was always the afterthought. My parents, Philip and Carol, made that clear. They praised my sister Noreen's straight A's, debate trophies, perfect smile, while I was lucky if they noticed I was in the same room. I still carry the sting from moments like winning a math competition, and my parents missing it because they were at Noreen's recital. Noreen always soaked up the attention with a smug nod, acting as if she'd earned every ounce of their affection. Their favoritism shaped our family life. Dinners revolved around Noreen, her promotions, her plans. If I tried to speak, Mom would cut me off. "Let's hear from your sister." Dad would look at her like she was the center of the world. I learned to stay quiet and swallow the hurt. It wasn't limited to home. At family gatherings, they'd parade Noreen while I faded into the background. Once, at a cousin's wedding, they boasted all night about Noreen's new retail job, but never mentioned I'd just accepted a role as a financial manager. The biggest betrayal was their business. My parents owned a small retail store in Chicago. Clothes and accessories. It was their pride, but it was always on the edge. Bad choices, overdue bills. I bailed them out regularly. Not once, but month after month. I wired $500 from my savings every month and spent hours offering financial advice to keep the place alive. I analyzed numbers, negotiated with suppliers, and streamlined their inventory. Did they thank me? No. Instead, they called Noreen to praise her marketing ideas, even though her contributions were mostly vague. Maybe a new sign, maybe a discount. My work got barely a nod. I wasn't naive. I knew they leaned on me because I was good with numbers, not because they cared. Each $500 transfer felt like a small sacrifice. Vacations skipped, the apartment I couldn't upgrade, but I did it out of duty and the stubborn hope that one day they'd notice. I spent late nights in my office catching errors that would have cost them thousands. Meanwhile, they fawned over Noreen's pitch that never materialized. It wasn't only money. The dismissal stung daily. Once I fixed a tax issue that would have been costly. When I told them it was solved, Mom replied, "Oh, good. By the way, Noreen's planning a big sale next month." No thanks, no acknowledgement. Dad grunted and dialed Noreen to discuss her vision. I stood there with the papers in my hand, feeling invisible. Another time I suggested a new accounting system. They ignored me until Noreen mentioned the same idea months later. Then it was brilliant. Noreen wasn't blameless. She leaned into their praise and often tossed me a pitying look, as if I were a charity case. When I was 20, she joked at a barbecue that I was lucky to be the backup kid. Mom laughed. Dad didn't correct her. That memory is a knife that twists every time they put her on a pedestal. Still, I kept helping, wiring money, fixing budgets, because I believed family did that. Looking back, I can see they used me for my money, my skills, my time. I became their safety net, relied on but never respected. Every check, every late-night call was me chasing approval that never arrived. They'd take my help, then sing Noreen's praises like she was the one saving the business. I'd lie awake wondering why I kept trying, duty, guilt. Maybe hope that they'd change. The hope died the night of their anniversary. I'd spent years as their afterthought, and I wasn't staying that way. The restaurant hummed with conversation, while the table focused on Noreen. A cousin leaned in, smiling. "Noreen, I heard you're killing it. Regional manager already?" She nodded, basking in it. Mom beamed. Dad's chest puffed up, like she was their greatest achievement. I listened as the table showered her with compliments. Promotion, marketing, charm with customers. No one mentioned my work, not one. I'd been managing finances for years, saving companies from collapse. But at that table I was invisible again. I tried to contribute. I cleared my throat. "I've been looking at the family store's numbers," I said steady. "You're losing money on overstock. Adjust the inventory system and cut some suppliers. You could save thousands a year." I leaned forward, ready to explain the plan I'd spent weeks sketching. The table went quiet, not the good kind. Noreen raised an eyebrow and smirked. "That's cute," she said condescendingly. "Stick to your spreadsheets. I've got actual ideas." A few cousins chuckled. Mom cut in sharply. "Sweetie, let's not bore everyone with numbers. Noreen's planning a big summer sale." Dad didn't even look at me, just muttered, "Yeah, Noreen knows what she's doing." My hands clenched the napkin. My weeks of work were dismissed in seconds like I was an intern pitching a CEO. I tried again, forcing a smile. "It's not just numbers. I can renegotiate with vendors, get better terms. It would make a real difference." Noreen laughed outright. "Vendors, please. I've got that covered. Maybe focus on your own job." Her words landed like a slap. Murmurs spread, some amused, some awkward. Mom waved it away. "Let's talk about something fun. Noreen, tell them about your new ad campaign." Dad turned to her as if I hadn't spoken. I sat back, throat tight, the sting of being overlooked settling over me. Then Dad stood to toast. His eyes swept the room, resting on Noreen, then on me. "To 30 years of love, family, and our pride and joy," he said. "Honestly, we wish Noreen was our only child." The words hit like a punch. Forks froze midair. A cousin gasped. Noreen didn't flinch. She smirked and looked right at me. Mom didn't correct him. She sipped her wine as if it were nothing. The silence pressed. Everyone waiting for a reaction, tears, shouting. I didn't give them that. My heart pounded, but I kept my face steady. Inside, years of being pushed aside crashed down. Noreen's smirk was the last straw. I pushed my chair back. The scrape loud in the quiet room. "Enjoy your night," I said, low and firm. I grabbed my purse and walked out in my heels, every step fueling a fire. Outside, the cool Chicago air didn't calm me. I'd spent years swallowing dismissals and favoritism. I was done. Standing on the sidewalk, city lights blurring through my anger, I decided not just to walk away. I decided to end the cycle of being their afterthought. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, replaying Dad's words, Noreen's smirk, Mom's silence. The images fueled a decision I'd avoided for years. I was finished being their invisible fixer and bank. I'd sent $500 a month, spent hours balancing their books, negotiated with vendors. What for? To be laughed at and erased in front of everyone. No more. I opened our family group chat, Dad, Mom, Noreen, and typed, "I'm done helping with the store. No more money, no more advice. Good luck." I hit send, my heart racing, knowing the chaos it would cause. My phone lit up almost immediately. Dad called and left a voicemail I didn't check. Mom texted, "What's this about? Call me now." Noreen sent one word, "Seriously." I stared at the screen and felt an odd calm. I wasn't answering. Not tonight, not ever. By morning, the calls multiplied. Dad left 3 more voicemails. Confusion turning to irritation. "We need to talk about this," he said, as if I owed an explanation. Mom's emails flooded my inbox, rambling pleas about the store being our family legacy, and how I couldn't abandon them. Noreen called twice, sharp and demanding. I stopped overreacting. I let everything go to voicemail, and left emails unread. Their panic came through the screen, but I felt no guilt. They'd relied on my money and expertise for years, without gratitude. Now they faced the consequences. The store would be a mess without me. I knew it. My $500 covered late bills and kept suppliers from cutting them off. My hours of advice kept the business afloat. Without it, they'd sink fast. I didn't feel sorry. I felt free. For the first time, I wasn't chasing approval or begging for respect. I was taking back my power, and it felt good. Noreen didn't stop. 2 days later, she posted on Facebook. Some people think they're indispensable, she wrote, but they're just jealous and petty, stirring drama to feel important. She didn't name me, but everyone knew. Comments flowed and some people tagged me. Private messages arrived, acquaintances asking if I was okay, others hinting I'd been difficult at work. She posted again about my failed relationships, claiming I was too career-focused to keep a boyfriend. Lies. My phone buzzed with notifications that jabbed at my reputation and life. I could have fired back, exposed how they'd begged for my help and how Noreen's ideas rarely worked. But I didn't. Responding would be playing her game, and I was done with that. I blocked her on Facebook, muted her number, and ignored the mounting emails from mom and dad. Their desperation was their problem now. The pressure continued. Dad called from a different number and left a message that started soft and turned accusatory. "You're hurting the family," he said, as if I'd humiliated them. Mom's next email was a guilt trip, claiming I was tearing us apart over a misunderstanding. Noreen texted in all caps, "You can't just walk away like this." I deleted it without replying. Their words didn't sway me, they only confirmed what I already knew. They cared about the store, the image, their comfort, not me. I was a means to an end. Each ignored call and unread message felt like a small victory. I wouldn't let them pull me back into dependence and dismissal. Noreen's posts kept coming. Vague jabs about ungrateful people or family betrayals. They stung, but they didn't break me. Colleagues asked questions, nudged by her lies, but I focused on work. I'm good at my job, better than Noreen at hers, and I wouldn't let her smear drag me down. Sitting at my desk, I thought about the store and how it would crumble without my help. How they'd scramble to fix what I'd held together. I felt resolve, not pity. They'd pushed me too far. Now they'd learned the cost of losing me. I wasn't just walking away, I was setting the stage for their fall. And I wasn't finished. A week later, I boarded a flight to Florida. Visiting my grandfather Henry wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. I'd spent days ignoring Dad's voicemails, Mom's guilt trips, and Noreen's vicious posts. They tried to drag me back into their web, but I wouldn't return to the store, the drama, or the lies. I needed someone who would listen and someone with the kind of perspective that could change things. Grandpa was that person. Fair, quiet, and able to see through pretenses. I knew he'd hear me. The flight from Chicago to Tampa was just over 2 hours, long enough to rehearse what I'd say. I landed in humid Florida, rented a car, and drove to Grandpa's small beachside house. He was on the porch when I arrived, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "You look like you've got something heavy to share," he said, his voice gruff but warm. I hugged him, the weight of the week settling into my chest. We sat in Grandpa's living room, an old fan ticking in the background, and I let everything out. I began with the anniversary dinner, how Dad stood, glass in hand, and announced that they wished Noreen were their only child. How that smug smile of hers cut deeper than his words. I explained years of being sidelined, my ideas ignored, my contributions dismissed, while they praised Noreen's half-formed plans. I laid out the money, $500 a month, I'd sent for years from my savings to keep their store afloat. I described late nights fixing tax problems, negotiating with suppliers, and streamlining operations, only to be met with silence or scorn. Then I told him about Noreen's posts, how she spread lies about my work and my relationships, and how those lies traveled fast through family and friends. Grandpa listened, his face hardening with every detail, his hands calloused from years in construction, fist clenched when I mentioned Dad's toast. "They said that in front of everyone?" he asked, voice low. I showed him screenshots of Noreen's posts I'd saved before blocking her. "Some people think they're indispensable," one read. followed by comments from cousins echoing her version. Another post hinted I was unstable and dragged my career through the mud. Grandpa's jaw tightened. "That's not family," he said. "That's betrayal." He stood pacing, anger visible, but controlled. Grandpa had built a small estate in Florida, some rental homes and land, and everyone knew he intended to pass things down to his kids, including Dad, with a portion set aside for me and Noreen. Now he shook his head. "I've seen how they treat you," he said. "I thought it would change, but this is unforgivable." He sat and steady and firm said, "I'm changing the will." I didn't have to argue. He made a call to his lawyer right then. The lawyer arrived that afternoon. The decision was direct. Dad, Mom, and Noreen were out. The properties would go to me with a portion given to a local charity. Grandpa supported. "You've earned it," he told me, eyes soft but certain. The words settled over me. I felt seen for the first time in years. Grandpa pressed for details about the store, how much I'd given, how heavily they'd relied on me. When I explained the $500 monthly transfers and the unpaid consulting hours, he simply shook his head. "They'll crash without you," he said, "not with pity, but with fact. Let them." He meant it. I understood the store's precarious position and knew the audits, supplier debts, and penalties I'd kept at bay would surface without my intervention. I flew back to Chicago the next day, with my resolve unchanged. I didn't call Dad, Mom, or Noreen. I ignored emails and texts. The store wasn't my responsibility anymore. Let them manage the consequences. I felt lighter, like I'd set down a weight I'd carried too long. A few days later, I met Kathleen for coffee. She'd always had my back. I told her everything: the dinner, Noreen's posts, my trip to Florida. She listened without judgment and said simply, "You did the right thing. They've used you for too long. Put yourself first." Her clear, steady support reminded me to focus on my life and career. Kathleen didn't demand reconciliation. She offered alignment and practical care. Walking away from that conversation, I felt a shift. Grandpa's choice wasn't just about money. It drew a line. I stopped fighting for their approval and started building my own future. Within months, their world began to fall apart. The store, propped up by my money and guidance, couldn't stay afloat without it. Late bills accumulated, suppliers cut terms, and a tax audit exposed years of sloppy bookkeeping I'd warned them about. Penalties piled up, tens of thousands they couldn't pay. Dad's charm didn't work on auditors. Mom scrambled to sell inventory, but it was too late. The bank foreclosed and the store closed. I learned of it from a cousin, not from them. I didn't reach out. Their choices had consequence. Noreen's ambitions collapsed with the business. Investors backed away from her plan to scale into a chain once the store's failure was public. Her social posts backfired. Relatives who'd grown tired of her smears started to dig and discovered that I'd been the one keeping the store alive. A cousin shared screenshots of my bank transfers proving the $500 monthly contribution. The narrative shifted quickly. Comments exposed the truth. Family friends unfollowed Noreen. Colleagues began to question her claims. She scrambled to explain, but the damage stuck. Dad and Mom faced their own fallout. Without store income, they missed payments on loans. Debts accumulated from years of poor choices. A second mortgage they'd counted on collapsed into missed payments. The bank seized their home. They moved into a small apartment. Many relatives who'd once applauded them now kept distance. An uncle publicly confronted Dad at a barbecue. "You pushed her away," he said. Mom tried to play the victim, but bank records, emails, and evidence of my offers to help made the story clear. Cousins stopped inviting them. Their calls went unanswered. Grandpa stayed firm. He'd heard about the collapse from a friend and wrote me a short, handwritten letter confirming the will change. The properties were mine, with a portion to charity. "It's done," he wrote. He had cut them off. I didn't feel triumph, only quiet relief. The move wasn't revenge. It was basic fairness. When Mom begged for a meeting, he refused. Noreen tried to contact him. He blocked her. Dad didn't reach out, too proud or too ashamed. I kept my distance and focused on my life. Professionally, things improved. My role as a financial manager grew. I landed a major client, a tech startup, and after months of hard work, closed a multi-million-dollar contract, managing their finances and averting a risky expansion. My boss hinted at a promotion to senior manager. The raise was more than money. It proved I didn't need my family's approval to succeed. I was building something that belonged to me. Outside work, I rebuilt my life around people who showed up. Kathleen became a steady presence. Small rituals like diner breakfasts and coffee dates kept me grounded. I also met Brian, a structural engineer with a quiet confidence and a dry humor that fit. Our relationship grew naturally. Weekend hikes, conversations about work and ambitions. He listened when I shared my family story and didn't try to fix it with empty words. "You're stronger than they'll ever know," he told me, offering the kind of steady belief I'd never received from my parents. I didn't reach out to my family, and they didn't reach out to me in any meaningful way. I heard through others that Dad was working odd jobs. Mom was selling crafts to make rent, and Noreen was bouncing between retail positions. I felt no gloating, only the calm knowledge that I had set boundaries they'd repeatedly ignored. Grandpa sent a short postcard from Florida saying he was proud of me. That was enough. The lesson was clear. Cherish people who truly love and respect you, not those who use you. For years I chased my family's approval, thinking money, time, and effort would earn respect. It didn't. They took and gave little in return. The people who mattered, Kathleen, Brian, Grandpa, showed up without strings. That shifted how I moved through life. I stopped seeking validation from those who'd never offer it, and invested in people who did. My life isn't perfect. Work is demanding, and sometimes I wonder if I acted too harshly. But then I remembered Dad's toast, Noreen's smirk, and Mom's silence. I remember years of being invisible and of being smeared to protect someone else's image. I'm not the villain in their story. I walked away to save myself, and I am better for it. Thanks for listening. What would you do if your family treated you this way? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.